Hello, children. I got a request. And to quote Victor Borga, normally I do not do requests unless, of course, I have been asked to do so. But it is funny. You have to watch Victor Borga. Anyway, I did have a request, and it was a good request, and I think very appropriate, and this would benefit many people. And the question was, or the request was, to do a video on why young people can't find jobs. And, so I said, yeah, no, that's a good idea to explain. Now, here's the thing, though, okay? You're going to have to trust me, and you're going to have to be intellectually honest, okay? If you still got that pride, son, that's pride messing with you. Pulp Fiction, anybody? If you are not going to be open-minded to hear an alternative point of view, okay? In other words, if you still think, if you're going to blame George Bush, or you're going to believe what all these adults have been telling you, what your professors, your teachers, the media, if you're going to believe that, and you're not going to have an alternative, the same people who told you what to do, to go and major in this, and any degree is a good degree, all those guys that told you to do what you do, and now your life sucks, you followed their advice, and your life isn't turning out the way they said it would, if you're still going to believe them, tune out now. I don't care. Yeah, but if you want the real world, you want the real reason that it's, and this is not my opinion, this is what it is, kids. So, put your politics aside, put your leftist socialist bullshit indoctrination that you received aside, and I'm going to explain to you why there just aren't a lot of jobs out there for you. Okay, and there's several reasons, but they all generally theme together, right? And I got my list up here, all right? First, you have slowing economic growth. Right? Back in the 1940s and the 1960s, you can look this chart up, the economy was growing at about 4.25% on average. Now, since that, and economic growth goes like this, so you can't really discern a trend, but if you average it out over the course of 10, 20, 15 years, you start to see a general trend. And that trend has been going down. Now we grow at about 2.5%. And I think even that's shrinking or slowing down even more, because, man, the economy has not been growing recently, right? So and all jobs don't come from the government. Jobs don't come from Barack Obama and his magical job farting unicorn. They come from the people. They come from the demand for goods and services. Right? So that's where the government is merely an agent that lives off of the economy to provide things like roads and defense and all that other stuff, right? But inevitably, economic growth comes from demand, right? And if people aren't making money, or they're unemployed, or we have a housing bubble, or your taxes are too high, people just aren't going to spend. They're going to contract their constrain their spending, right? So I don't want to get into a Keynesian argument. I don't want you people to say, oh, it's not a supply. So in general, the short answer, economic growth is slowing, and since all jobs come from economic growth in the economy, with that slowing, especially relative to population growth, there aren't that many jobs and economic opportunities out there. Another thing, the government is crowding out the private sector. What do you mean by crowding out? Well, there's only two types of entities in any economy. There's the public sector, meaning the government, it's public. Like the roads are public, the parks are public, it's public. You and I own the national parks, we can go visit because it's public. And then there's the private sector, private property. Businesses, corporations, individuals, even non-profits, charities, those aren't, whatever is not government is the private sector. Now, again, all economic growth comes from the private sector. The government does not produce anything. It moves money around. It might buy military wares, but it's the private sector, Lockheed and all these other companies that make military wares, right? Now, as the government gets bigger, it's got to tax more. And when it taxes more, what do you think happens to the private sector? It starts to shrink as a percentage of the total economy. Now, government spending, there's a difference between revenue and spending, but we're just going to do spending. Just trust me on this. You look at spending, and government spending has been increasing. It used to be only 3% back in 1900. That's how big the government was, federal government anyway. Now you take state, federal, and local, and on average, it's about 40% of the economy. Right? That means roughly 37% less stuff for private sector individuals. Right? So the government is crowding out, and again, with more government, there's less economic growth. You give more money and welfare to people that don't produce anything in return, the economic growth is going to shrink. Right? So that's another thing. Again, you look this up. Don't go to OECD.org. Look it up. Right? Another thing, national debt, high corporate taxes, and just a general anti-business socialist political environment or mentality. Right? These things scare away businesses. They scare away employers. They scare away job creators. You have a national debt that's equivalent to 100% GDP. That's very bad. It's growing. It's not shrinking. Right? Then on top of that, we have the second highest corporate tax rates in the world, next to Japan. Right? We have a 40% corporate tax rate. There will be people who say, well, that's not the effective tax rate. Shut up. The fact that the stated tax rate is 40% and that all these companies have to go through these machinations and these accounting gimmickry and tricks to lower it to a lower rate is just, they say, screw it, we're going to go to Bermuda where there's no corporate taxes, right? So you have a very anti-business. And then the politics. Look, not you individually, but you kids, the millennials, you're the dumb fucks that voted in Barack Obama. And his bullshit, he's a socialist. He is. This is not a name calling. This is not pejorative. He is a socialist. And you vote in Democrats, they're socialists. You look at how they vote, they want other people's money. Oh, the evil corporations, those big, bad, evil companies. Why aren't there any jobs? Right? So businesses look at that, and it's the same thing. Look at, here's an interesting anecdote, but it relates to it. Bacardi, the rum manufacturer, they used to be based in Cuba. Now I think they're in Bermuda. Right? And they saw the writing on the wall. Castro ended up taking over everything, took over all the private companies. There is no private sector in Cuba. They're underground. And then Bacardi just said, fuck it, we're going to Bermuda. And if you look at every corporation out there, heck, you know what? Look at Bermuda. Look at the Cayman Islands. Look at Singapore. Look at these low tax havens. What's the unemployment rate there? And what do you think their college graduates do? You think they're working as baristas? They're too busy working in banking and law firms and whatever else because all the money is going there. Bermuda has an income per capita of about 70 grand. We only have 45. Right? So, look at it. I don't care. You know. So, in any case, yeah, when you start, we're going to stick it to the businesses. What do you think they're going to do? They'll keep some operations here. They'll sell you the goods and the services, but their jobs they're gone. They're overseas. They keep some, they're in other words, they're not going to invest in a sinking ship like the Titanic or Cuba. They're going to keep most of their assets out of the United States, right? So that's another reason. Overregulation. Everything from employment, like how many people I have to hire who are minorities and females, and then I have to provide them Obamacare, and then if you have more than 25 employees, there's this, and that's just employment regulation. Take a look at the Keystone XL pipeline, right? You know how many jobs that would have provided? But no, because we had to make sure a bunch of activists had their egos masturbated so that they could feel good about themselves and not have real jobs, okay? That regulation, oh, you can't do it, oh, we need to study, oh, we need this. The EPA, the OSHA, all that gets in the way to the point that most people, any entrepreneur is like, fuck it. I mean, think of an individual. Do you want to go, you got to fill out the paperwork to start a company. But then all the regulations that come with it, bullshit. Who's going to start companies? Who wants to do that? Life is too short. I'm surprised that people that start companies do. And the ones that do, I mean, have you noticed most of the companies aren't exactly industrial or physical kind of companies? They're like internet startups where there is no, like, mines, there's no road, there's no, you have to churn up Mother Earth. It's just like, yeah, we're on the internet. And that's about as much bullshit as we want. I don't even know how Zuckerberg tolerates the employee. He doesn't. He has other people deal with that. But in any case, yeah, so over-regulation, that's another thing. Regulations, you ask why there aren't any jobs out there for young people. I'm just telling you. Right? Another thing, the baby boomer generation, they have piss poorly managed their financial situation. They have done as a generation, a very poor job in terms of retirement planning. They just don't have the money. And normally they would retire and they would leave their industry and then open positions would open up, and then everyone would get promoted. You know, like the CEO retires, well, we need a new CEO. Let's take the vice president, promote him, and now, well, the regional manager, he's vice president, and now the manager is regional manager, and then that way, in other words, you know, there's turnover, there's turnover, there's churning within the labor market. Well, these baby boomers are stuck. They have to work past retirement because you just don't have the money. They just pissed it away on stupid shit. You know, and don't blame them, because the millennials and Gen Xers are even worse financial managers than them, but neither here nor there. In other words, there's a bottleneck, a logjam at the top. So with this logjam, no one's getting promoted. There are no new opportunities, no promotion. I mean, shit, when is the last time you got promoted? I mean, and that's why you're working these shitty jobs, because that's all that's available. No one's retiring up at the top. Also, Gen X and millennials. The reason you're even worse at managing your finances than the than the baby boomers, because, well, you just don't have any money. Gen X got just obliterated by the dot-com crash. I don't think millennials were around for that. And then double-teamed on the housing bubble. All right. The millennials, I think, maybe caught the tail end of the housing bubble, but what you guys are completely screwed over with is your student loans. Right. If you have a mortgage and student debt, you don't have any spending money. So normally, like, 50 years ago, you graduate from high school, you'd probably get a decent paying job out of high school, and you'd start spending money, Well, that money would then, that demand, that consumer demand would help prompt additional demand for jobs and things like that. Well, you're too busy paying back debts or getting out of credit card debt or getting out from underneath an underwater house on a mortgage. You're not buying shit, you're just paying back debt. That doesn't really increase demand for anything. It also explains why interest rates are so low, because there's money no one wants to borrow because they don't want to start businesses. Everyone's paying back their loans. Well, you got a flood of money and no one demand, so interest rates are real low, but that neither here nor there. So, yeah, compared to, like, the World War II generation when they were in their 20s, oh, shit, they were buying houses and cars and, and girls were dressing nice and guys were dressing in suits, and you had reason to go and work, and now everyone's pierced with their fucking hoop ears. Fuck it, get rid of that shit, guys. I'm gonna put a disc in my ear. God. I'm an individual, it's how I define my... Oh, shut up. You're a conformist. You're such a conformist. Just, anyway. And then, another thing. There is a complete mismatch, speaking of college, between the skills and the jobs that are out there. Right? In my book, Worthless, I talk about how I asked all these students what do they want to buy, or what they're going to get. If I gave them $1,000, or what's the next purchase, and I had them list their degrees. And everything they wanted required an engineer, or an accountant, or a chemist, or a businessman, or an actuary, or a statistician, or a physician, or some STEM-related science, engineering, technology degree. What were they all majoring in? English, philosophy, psychology. This is where Mike Rowe, Mike Rowe works. This is why he advocates the trades. Everyone's going to buy gas, but how many of you want to go work at the Bakken oil field? No, none of you. I even had this kid, I was talking to him. He read my book Worthless, and he wanted to know what to do. I said, well, there's this. Well, no, I don't want to do it. Well, there's this. Well, I don't want to. It's like, I inevitably said, look, kid, there's none of this is going to be what you want to do. Okay? But if you want to be successful in life, you're going to have to do things you don't want to do. That doesn't mean you do things that absolutely drive you nuts. But this, well, hey, I don't like that. I don't like, grow the fuck up and become an adult. You don't get to, it's the biggest lie told to your generation of mine. You're going to be able to do what you want to do. Follow the heart and money will follow. That isn't how it works. Right? It also explains why you can't find a job. If you know how to weld, if you know how to, frame and sheetrock, go to the Bakken oil field. Go there, get the jobs. All right, go to the 2-year community college. Hell, don't even go to a 2-year community college. Just train yourself. Go buy a welding set. I don't know. There's no reason to, go apprentice under somebody. All right. So there's the mismatch between all the crap you guys majored in, and it was crap. Just be honest about it. And then what people actually want. And you can do this yourself. List what you want to buy, your iPads and your iPhones and the Xbox and all this cool shit. And then list your degree. And if it doesn't match up, like your degree doesn't have a role in producing the shit you want, that's why you don't have jobs. Then finally, and this is an overall thing, there really is no hope or faith in the future of the United States. There really isn't. And I think that is very important, but the overall, probably it's not the only reason, but the overall environment and I guess primary reason, there's no economic growth. Because if you don't have faith in the future, if you don't, believe there's going to be hope in the future, you're not going to invest. Now, all the idiots that voted for Barack Obama, their hope was free money, which doesn't produce economic growth. Okay, just printing off money and giving it to people, that does not produce jobs. That doesn't produce things. That doesn't produce stuff. Right? So that hope is fake hope. It's just them wanting to be parasites and basically have everybody else be their slave so they fucking collect a welfare check. Right? But genuine hope for real adults and real producers, people who support themselves in life, hope would be like, yeah, I want to open up a factory. I always wanted to make bowling pins. Why? Because I like bowling. I always want to make ornate bowling pins. That's actually pretty cool, some ornate bowling pins. I think that'd be a cool idea. I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to do that. Well, if the economy looks gloomy and you're just going to be taxed at 40% and everyone's going to hate you because you're successful or rich. Let's say you start out poor. Why would you want to be rich? You'd be ostracized. You'd be villainized. You didn't earn that. That was Barack Obama. That was the socialists. That was your teachers. They all taught you your ABCs. You just happened to get lucky. Why would you invest in that kind of environment? And additionally, what really drives most men, which makes for most entrepreneurs, sorry ladies, it's just statistically true, the vast majority of jobs, private sector jobs, are created by men. And public sector is created by idiots. Anyway, what drives men? Oh, that's right, women. Have you seen what the women look like today? Have you seen them? Obese, bitchy, arrogant. Oh, humongously arrogant because you major in some worthless liberal arts thing and you got your 4.0 GPA in something that's as easy as breathing. And then, you go, girl, that just kills the economic growth and entrepreneurial desires. Right? Lord knows how many Steve Jobs are sitting downstairs watching porn, playing video games. So just like, yeah, fuck it. You know what? I can't find a job. No girls that why do I want it? Fuck no. Play video games. Get drunk. Which isn't a bad thing. Don't overdo it. But again, there's no, without this hope, without family, without attraction to the opposite sex, without reasonably sane members of the opposite sex, other people are not incented to do their best, women included. And ladies, I know I'm hard on you, but let's be hard on the guys. Guys, you have higher obesity rates than the women. Do you think these girls want to fucking get hot for you? You think they're going to go to the gym and lift weights and tighten up their abs and tighten up their ass for you? Some might, right? But what are you bringing to the table? In other words, there's no incentive for the women to support the men to support the ladies, let alone either go and try and do something great, entrepreneurial, and start businesses or invest in the future. And so that's it. That's the primary reasons that the young generation just don't have jobs. I mean, you might have crappy jobs. You're certainly underemployed if you do, most likely. But that's the economic and socioeconomic and political reasons that the economy sucks, economic growth is slowing, and you don't have jobs. So the real issue, I don't want to leave you on that. I don't want to leave you just hanging like, oh yeah, sucks to be you. Go fuck yourself. I don't mean to do that. I like to leave with what can you do. Well, what you can do is adapt to your environment. It's the only thing you can do. And yes, it sucks that you're not going to have that nice house. Oh, you see those pictures in the 50s where everyone's like wearing suits and they're out in public in the nice cars and everything. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Terribly sorry. It might, but it takes such an epiphany and such a reversal. I don't think it's going to happen. So you got to adapt to the real world. You have to say, well, I'm not going to become that super awesome, entrepreneur I thought, or I'm not going to become that banker. I'm not going to become that flutist, whatever. But you got to find out what is it in life that you can find some kind of happiness and joy with, and that's going to be having good friends, having good family, choosing the right mate if you can find one. And pursuing leisure more than labor, because let's face it doesn't pay to work anymore. And this is why I advocate going on welfare. Fuck morality. You go and collect as much government money as you want. You play as many video games as you want. You loaf around. You do whatever you want. Because it economically just doesn't pay. The other thing, I'll be back. That's why I wrote this book here, Enjoy the Decline. I'm not just doing it to sell it. I mean, yeah, I'll make money on it. But really, this is, if you're like, there is no future, there is no hope, where are the jobs? That book says, yeah, there is no future, there is no jobs, and we're pretty much fucked. But here's how you have fun and enjoy life anyway. That's why it's called Enjoy the Decline. So definitely, either take the time to think things through, ponder the meaning of life, realize that it's other human beings, reorient your life goals to be conducive with the craptastic culture and society and country we have now, which should take some doing. Talk to a therapist. Absolutely. Certainly would help. I didn't, but, I kind of talk myself into these things. I'm my own therapist. Otherwise, I think it's like $15, 7 on Kindle. That Enjoy the Decline book really, I think, does a very good job, if I may pat myself on the back, but taking bias out of it, read the reviews. How about that? Read the review. So, hopefully that explains things. Hopefully, it doesn't solve things, but at least clears things up so you're not confused anymore, and got a little bit of an economic lesson there today. So, toodles.